Godzilla, King of the Monsters trailer was revealed earlier today to my complete surprise. I had no idea, literally as it happened. I just pushed on the old YouTube moniker on the corner of the screen to bring me back to the front page, and what do I see? King of the Monsters full trailer. I would have done a spit take had I been drinking anything. I had the jitters. Serious jitters. That whole moment where your body just feels like complete jello or something. I don't know how to describe it. Life sucks, people, okay? I don't need to tell you that. And of course, of all people, it's Godzilla, who bursts out of the ocean with a grin and a thumbs up, all just to cheer me up. The big lug just knows me, what can I say? And he probably knows you too. I'm just going to get right into it and talk about it. And what can I say other than it was terrible. I didn't like it. Cheesy, hokey, pretentious. I don't know what they're doing. You know, the Rodan doesn't look like Rodan, and I'm just kidding. I thought it was great. Up to this point, I'd been really worried about the sequel because Edwards left and Millie Bobby Brown was casted, and I don't know her, but the vibe I was getting was this would be a Stranger Things / Spielberg take on the monsters of Toho, and I kept thinking to myself, please don't be that. I mean, people were joking about it being that type of film, and I wasn't joking. I was scared. It could still end up being that. And I don't really have anything against those properties or that type of tone. It just really kind of irritated me because it's such a Hollywood, hey, that's what's in now type of thing to do, and I hate that, especially when they're very transparent about it. It's pandering. That's entertainment at its worst, is when it's very pandering, and I don't like that. In small doses, it's fine, but I was worried about it here. And Godzilla does not surf the trends, okay? Godzilla is not a trend surfer. He comes out of the surf, which then causes a massive tidal wave and floods everybody along with their trends. That's what he does. So even if they are going for that type of tone, which this trailer still kind of hints that might be what they're doing here. Hopefully if they just don't lean too heavily on it, it'll be fine. I don't mind a kid's point of view in a giant kaiju story. That could work. Kids were a big theme in Godzilla 2014, not so much through the story or the script, but the cinematography, with kids having this kind of primal sense of danger that's more in tune with the world around them than perhaps the adults. And that was a neat viewpoint, which might be expanded upon in some sense in this movie as the world gets destroyed around them. From what I saw, there was at least one pic that shows Brown's character, and she's looking at a photo of her parents with another kid who I didn't see at all in the trailer. Maybe they died or something, and that's part of the past tragedy. Maybe during the Godzilla versus Muto battle. Yeah, the Mutos, remember them? And I got this vibe because it seems like her parents, who consist of Lady, whose face I've seen everywhere but don't know the name to, and Friday Night Lights Man, that they've split up. There's both world destruction going on and a sort of family destruction, annihilation that's happening. And it looks like they're kind of comparing the two with that family picture dropping during some kind of attack. And hey, it looks like the San Fran fiasco was just the beginning, was just the skirmish that it was, because there's a lot more property damage going on here compared to the first film. I'm glad there doesn't seem to be a time skip after the first film, at least not a big one like 20 years later, and I'm happy to see there are returning human characters. Watanabe and Sally Hawkins' characters as Monarch scientists are back. And though they didn't have a whole lot of screen time in the first film, it is nice to see familiar faces. That's why the second series of Godzilla films has always been my favorite. It didn't just start with a clean slate every time, but became this shared universe where Godzilla and other kaiju just happen to attack Japan on a daily basis. Not a fun universe to live in, and yet I can't say I'm not strangely envious. In fact, it was so surprising to see those returning characters, especially Sally Hawkins, who I'm just learning at this point was the main star of The Shape of Water. I don't know why I didn't make that connection until now. I didn't see Shape of Water, but I did see plenty of, trailers and stuff. That's how out of the loop I am. Anyway, the monsters. They're using all the ones they have the rights to, which I'm not sure whether to applaud Warner Brothers on or discredit. It just seems like a desperate move to stuff the film with as many monsters as they can before Toho somehow retracts their blessing. I mean, I can understand it, but at the same time, it's also very transparent. I also don't like how much we saw, though. To be fair, they were brief glimpses, but to show this much for a film that doesn't even come out in almost a year's time felt dangerously premature. I feel like you have to be very sparing with what you show for these types of movies, and since there will probably be another big trailer down the line, I'm worried they're going to reveal too much of their hand, especially in that inevitable second trailer, which is something you don't want for a giant monster movie. That's why Godzilla 2014 2014 worked for me. I like the build-up story arc which that movie had. I like the sense of mystery and ominous dread that continues to grow and wear on you into a final, inevitable battle. I think that works for a lot of things, but particularly for a monster movie, and probably more so than any other kind of film. And seeing my kaiju pals come to the big screen, as exciting as it is, as it made me, would be more special on the big screen if I got to see them for the first time in all their new CGI-ness on the big screen. There's got to be a better word for that other than CGI-ness, but oh well. As is, they didn't show too much, but it is still more than I would have liked when looking at the long game. I can wait for that. Yeah, I'm boasting that I'm patient. We live in the internet age where all good things in moderation was thrown out the window with its introduction to the world. I don't like it. I don't like having too much information these days. It's not fun. I willingly sit on my sofa with crossed arms. Not fun. What Star Wars is to many people, Godzilla is to me. I've always loved the story of Godzilla. I love the stupid, I love the silly, I love the serious, and I love the weird. What I'm trying to say is Star Wars for a lot of people is usually more than a movie. It's an event. That's what this kind of is for me. I became like a stalker before Godzilla 2014 came out, putting the movie's name in search bars every day just to find out whatever new that I could. It was an obsession. And then the movie came out and I loved it. And it was technically the first Godzilla movie that I saw in the theater. I mean, it didn't really matter how much of a big Godzilla fan you were, there weren't really a lot of opportunities for that. Another thing about this trailer, Clair de Lune. The famous piece from Debussy was played during the trailer, and while I won't give the editors and production team any points for originality, I will give them some bonus points for creativity. This piece has been done to death, even abused in Twilight, which still gets me really angry to this day, but it was nevertheless a strange piece to go with. It fit the tone of the trailer, but soft, impressionistic French piece of music and giant monster movie don't exactly go hand in hand, so I thought that decision was interesting. I actually made another Godzilla video a while ago where I was talking about Ifukube's music having hints of other famous composers' style in them, and Debussy was one mentioned, so maybe it's not that far off after all. I especially feel like Mothra influenced the music choice. I don't know, something about moths and Clair de Lune go together for some reason. Maybe it has to do with the moonlight, which moths are attracted to or used as a sort of navigation. Maybe it's a vague clue as to what this whole thing's going to be about, because despite how much it's used, I find its appearance here to be suspicious. I don't think it was just used because it went nicely in an artistic sense. I feel like it's at least a little nudge as to what this movie might entail. Further making me feel that way is that they must have been aware that using that piece would come off as tacky or cliche, so they seem to mess around with it a bit. It's Clair de Lune, but a lot brighter, with a sort of ghostly chorus that just increases in dynamics, just gets louder and louder as the trailer goes on and reaches its end. Really sounds like it's bursting in sound near the end. It fit the trailer. Still a little tacky, especially when it really cues at a pivotal moment when Godzilla is emerging out of the ocean and shoots his atomic breath out into the sky, which I'm kind of wondering why he would do that. It was effective. I like its use here. They didn't just throw Clair de Lune in. They messed around with it a little bit, so I appreciated that. We got an ever so brief glimpse of King Ghidorah. Has he ever been on Godzilla's side? They've always been enemies, which makes me think this is either every man for himself, 3 against 1, or something of a tag team match. I can't imagine Mothra fighting alongside Ghidorah, although they did kind of do that in Giant Monster Attack, so maybe, but at least for this movie I think that's off the cards. Godzilla and Rodan never got along too well either, though sometimes they could be allies. That said, these are giant monsters treated as living creatures in these movies, so it might just be a free-for-all King of the Ring with commentary by the Bushwhackers. Would be nice to see Godzilla and Mothra team up though. They're the original odd couple. I've always wanted to see that in modern day. It'd be funny and awesome at the same time. But I don't know what reason any of these monsters would have to knowingly join forces. Either that or they would kind of team up against a common enemy without really knowing it at the same time. They just know they have a common enemy, who I would imagine is King Ghidorah. It might turn into a 3-on-1 type situation, but Rodan is looking pretty serious here. He might be just as much of a threat as Ghidorah is, and it might be Godzilla and Mothra finding themselves reluctantly fighting for the humans once again. Gosh, it's special, you know, seeing these monsters on the big screen again in all their glory just feels good. It just feels good. It's not a vindication thing, but it's something like that. Just seeing Mothra unfurl her wings under that waterfall. To Claire de Lune, again, I feel like Mothra was a big reason for Claire de Lune being in here. I wonder how or if the Mothra twins will make an appearance, or maybe Mothra will befriend the human characters. This might be a more down-to-earth rendition of Godzilla, as down-to-earth as you can get, but it's not out of possibility that that will happen, because that's always been Mothra's thing. She's mostly a harmless monster that does recognize the existence of other human beings to some degree. And throughout Godzilla films, they've always played with that. I do wish for a Mothra movie, though, one day that uses pretty much all of the lore of Mothra. As weird as all that extra stuff is, I loved it. I've still got my worries. I hope this doesn't stray too much away from the tone of Godzilla 2014. It's obviously going to get crazier, but I don't want that to come at the cost of the world that Godzilla and Kong have established. I love both. I know the flaws they each had, but the good far outweighed the bad for me. But yeah, this is kind of the movie that's, I don't want to say jumping the shark, but you know, it's pushing that science fiction line as far as it can go, which is fine. It isn't that there's so much going on, it's just I don't even know what I'm looking at half the time. And a lot of it seems to be civilizations of sorts that are underground. And we saw King Ghidorah was frozen underground. They seem to have found him a giant three-headed dragon, a golden three-headed dragon. I really wonder how they're going to people are just going to mull over it, because it's a dragon. It's the first real living dragon, so of course this isn't the first time Ghidorah has been frozen or encased in ice and then broke out of it. Again, that was in Giant Monsters All Out Attack. I'm getting actually a strong, of all the Godzilla movies that have happened before this, Giant Monsters All Out Attack is the one that's is the film I'm getting a lot of deja vu about. I'm sure that movie won't follow the same plot as Giant Monsters All Out Attack, but there are definitely a fair share of callbacks. Some other worries I have here, some of the lines felt a bit amateurish, hokey, or on the nose. They weren't eye-roll inducing, but it was close. You have Brown delivering a line, "You're a monster," near the end of the trailer, to someone she's clearly disappointed in, which is bad, but it goes by so quick, and the actress delivers it well. So as a result, it's not as bad as it could be. The other female lead here, who could be something of an anti-hero or antagonist, says that all of the kaiju need to be found in order to bring about preservation of humanity. I don't know why that is. They could be going somewhere with that, but these monsters are causing a lot of devastation, so is it seek and destroy, or seek, research, and destroy, or is there something more to it? What are the humans trying to achieve here is a big question, I think. This might have been explained also in some Monarch file already, so apologies if I missed it and I just don't know what's going on, but also, I'm sorry, I know it's a trailer, but the narration in the beginning hopefully won't be in the movie. It was passable for a trailer, but for the film, it's just way too dramatic. Not that what we're seeing isn't dramatic, but if the apocalypse does happen, would anyone really be reciting low-tier Shakespeare about the self-hate and the end of mankind? I know I wouldn't be standing around to listen, that's for sure. It's preachy, and I don't like preachy. No one does, really. I know I'm in the minority, but still. Again, that's why I liked Godzilla 2014 so much. I know some people had their reservations about that, to put it nicely. To me, though, it was subtler. It told its story through the imagery. It was a very visually driven movie, which seems to have a negative connotation to it, but I don't think that's actually a bad thing, especially for a movie like this. That said, the imagery here in this trailer is gorgeous. It might be CG as far as the eye can see, but from an artistic standpoint, I like what I'm looking at. Some of these images don't even look like they went through any sort of creative filter afterwards. Like they had a sketch artist draw some stuff up, and there it is exactly as envisioned on screen. I like it. We saw King Ghidorah's lightning, could be a red herring, but I'd say that's him attacking. And that's all I really have to go over for today, for right now. As Konami's Maida would say, very, very excite. I hope you're all as excited as I am. I'm a big Godzilla fan. I've been a fan of Godzilla since I was a kid, since King Kong vs. Godzilla, which was the first film that I saw. Some of my other favorites are Destroy All Monsters, Godzilla vs. Destroya, Godzilla vs. Biollante. That one is so freaking weird. But I love that one. I could go on about this for a long time, but I won't. So yeah, that's the video. If you want to hear more Godzilla talk, you can click that link on the video where I talk about the music of Godzilla for 15 minutes or so. I have no life. And if you have any thoughts, please feel free to leave a comment. I don't get a lot of them. Did you like the trailer? Did you not? I would love to hear any thoughts. Do you have any theories about what all this means? I would love to hear that too. Till then, I'm going to go watch the trailer for 50 times in a row. And I'm not kidding. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Ba-da-da. Da-da-da. 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 Oh my God!